The Path Magazine, May 1886. Theosophical Symbolism. Ever since the Theosophical Society was founded, November 17, 1875, the number 7 has played a prominent part in all of its affairs. And as usual, the symbols which particularly relate or pertain to the Society are 7 in number. The first is the seal of the Society. Second, the serpent biting his tail. Third, the Gnostic cross near the serpent's head. Fourth, the interlaced triangles. Fifth, the crux ansata in the center. Sixth, the pin of the Society, composed of a crux ansata intertwined by a serpent, forming together the letters T, S, and the 7th, Om, the sacred Vedic word. The seal of the Theosophical Society contains all of the symbols enumerated, and it accepts Om and is the synthesis of them. It, in fact, expresses what the Society is itself and contains, or at least what it ought to, in symbolic form, the doctrines which many of its members adhere to. A symbol, to be properly so called, must be contained in the idea or ideas which it is intended to represent. As a symbol of a house could never be the prow of a boat or the wing of a bird, but it must be contained somewhere in the form of the house itself. That is, it must be an actual part chosen to represent or stand for the whole. It need not to be the whole, but it may be a lower form or species used as the representative for a higher of the same kind. The word is derived from the Greek words meaning to throw off, that is, to throw together. To be a just and correct symbol, it should be such as that the moment that it is seen by one versed in symbolism, its meaning and its application become easily apparent. The Egyptians adopted to represent the soul passing back to its source after the trial in the Hall of Two Truths, a winged globe, for a globe is a symbol of either the Supreme Soul or a portion of it, and the wings were added to represent its life and flight to the upper spheres. In another branch of their symbology, they represented justice by a scale which gives a just balance, while even there in the two halls of truth, they reverted again to the other mode and symbolized the man being weighed by justice in the form of his heart over against the feather of truth in the opposite pan of the scales. There is one very curious hieroglyph of the Egyptians which deserves some study by those of a curious mind. Here we will merely point it out, remarking that there is a mine of great value in the Egyptian method of picturing their ideas of the macrocosm. In one of the numerous papyri, now in the British Museum, there is a picture of a globe being held up by a beetle by the means of his head and 2 forelegs, while he is standing upon a sort of pedestal which has certain divisions looking on the whole like a section of an hourglass crossed by horizontal lines that project from each side. This pedestal represents stability, but what does the whole mean or shadow forth? Those who can follow up suggestions should direct their thoughts to the relation which the sun bears to the earth in its orbital revolution. The second symbol is the serpent biting his tail. This is wisdom and eternity. It is eternity because that has neither beginning nor end, and therefore the ring is formed by serpent swallowing his own tail. There's an old Hermetic symbol similar to this, in which the circle is formed by 2 serpents, interlaced, and each swallowing the tail of the other one. No doubt the symbolism in that is in respect to the duality of the manifested all, and hence two serpents, inextricably intertwined. Furthermore, the scales of the reptile form the figures of facets or diamonds, which shadow forth the illimitable diversity of the aspects of wisdom or truth. This is not due to any want of coherence or congruity in truth itself, but solely to the diverse views which each individual takes of the one truth. These reflecting facets or diamonds are the beings composing the macrocosm. Each one has developed himself only to a certain degree, and therefore can only appreciate and reflect that amount of wisdom which has fallen to his lot. As he passes again and again through the form of man, he slowly develops other various powers of appreciating more truth, and so, at the last, may become one with the whole, the perfect man, able to know and to feel completely his union with the all. This is when he has acquired the highest yoga. So, in our experience, and in history, and ethnology, we find individuals, nations, and races whose want of responsiveness to certain ideas, and then others whose power to grasp them, can only be explained by the doctrines of reincarnation and karma. If those doctrines are not accepted, there's no escape from a blank negation. It is not necessary for us to express the duality of the Supreme Soul by two serpents, because in the third component part of the seal, it's symbolized by the interlaced triangles. One of these is white, that one with the point uppermost, and the other is black, with its apex pointed downward. They are intertwined because the dual nature of the Supreme, while in the manifestation, is not separate in its parts. Each atom of matter, so called, also has its atom of spirit. This is what the Bhagavad Gita denominates Purusha and Prakriti, and Krishna there says that he is at once Purusha and Prakriti. He is alike the very best and the very worst of men. These triangles also mean the manifested universe. It is one of the oldest and the most beautiful of symbols, and can be discovered among all nations, not only those now inhabiting the earth, but also in the monuments, the carvings, and other remains of the great races who have left us the gigantic structures, now silent as far as the voice of man is concerned, but resounding with speech for those who care to listen. They seem to be full of ideas turned into stone. The triangles thus combined form in the interior space a six-sided plane figure. This is the manifested world. 6 is the number of the world, and 666 is the great mystery which is related to the symbol. John talks of this number in Revelation. Around the six-sided center are the 6 triangles projecting into the spiritual world and touching the enclosed serpent of wisdom. In an old book, this is made by the great head of the Lord rising above the horizon of the ocean of matter, with the arms just raised so that they make the upper half of the triangle. This is the long face, or the macrocosmos, as it is called. As it rises slowly and majestically, the placid water below reflects it in reverse, and thus makes the whole double triangle. This lower one is dark and forbidding in its aspects, but at the same time the upper part of the darker one, itself light, for it is formed by the majestic head of this atom Kadmon. Thus they shade into one another, and this is a perfect symbolism, for it clearly figures the way in which day shades into night, and evil into good. In ourselves we find both. Or, as the Christian St. Paul says, the natural and spiritual are always together, warring against each other, so that what we would do we cannot, and what we desire not to be guilty of, the darker half of man compels us to do. But ink and paper fails us in the task of trying to elucidate this great symbol. Just go to Hermes, or to St. John, to the Kabbalah, or the Hindu books, wherever you please, and there you will find the 7 times 7 meanings of the interlaced triangles. Om. Om is the sacred Vedic symbol. Let us repeat it with a thought directed to its true meaning. Within the small circle placed upon the serpent is a cross with its ends turned back. This is called the Gnostic cross. It signifies evolution, among other ideas, for the turning back of its ends is caused by the revolving of the 2 diameters of the circle. The vertical diameter is the spirit moving down and bisecting the horizontal. This completed, the revolution round the great circle commences, and that motion is represented in the symbol by the ends turned back. Chapter 3 of the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says, quote, "He who is in this life does not cause this cycle, thus already revolved, to continue revolving, lives to no purpose, a life of sin, indulging his senses." End quote. That is, we must assist the great wheel of evolution and do not oppose it. We must try to help in the great work of returning to the sources from whence we came, and constantly endeavor to convert lower nature into higher, not only that of ourselves, but also of our fellow man and of the whole animated world. This cross is also the symbol of the Hindu chakra, or discus of Vishnu. In the Mahabharata is described the conflict between the Asuras and the Devas for the possession of the vase of Amrita, which had been churned with infinite trouble from the ocean, and which the Asuras desired to take for themselves. The conflict began when Rahu, an Asura, assuming the form of a Deva, began drinking the ambrosia. In this case, the Amrita was spiritual wisdom, material existence, immortality, and also magic power. The deceit of Rahu was discovered before he had swallowed, and then the battle began. Quote, "In the midst of this dreadful hurry and confusion of the fight, Nar and Narayan entered the field together. Narayan, beholding a celestial bowl in the hands of Nar, it reminded him of his chakra, the destroyer of the Asuras. The faithful weapons, ready at the mind's call, flew down from heaven with direct and refulgent speed, beautiful yet terrible to behold, and being arrived, glowing like the sacrificial flame, and spreading terror around, Narayan, with his right arm formed like an elephantine trunk, hurled forth the ponderous orb, the speedy messenger, and glorious ruin of hostile towns, who, raging like the final all-destroying fire, shot bounding with desolating force, killing thousands of the Asuras in his rapid flight, burning and involving like the lambent flame, and cutting down all that would oppose him. Anon, he climbed the heavens from whence he came. End quote. Mahabharata, Book 1, Chapter 15. Ezekiel of the Jews also saw this wheel. When he was among the captives by the river Kabar in Chaldea, in a vision he saw the 4 beasts and the man of the apocalypse with them. For each of the 4 faces was a wheel of the color of beryl. It was a wheel within a wheel, and they went wherever the living creatures went. For the spirit of the living creatures was in the wheels. All of this appeared terrible to him, for he says, "And when they went, I heard a voice, like the noise of great waters, like the voice of the Almighty, a noise of turmoil, like the noise of a host." Now there are many more meanings concealed in this symbol, just as there are in all others. In the center of the interlaced triangles is placed the crux ansata. This is also extremely ancient. In the old Egyptian papyri, it is frequently found. It signifies life, as Isis stands before the candidate, or the soul, upon his entry. She holds in one hand this cross, while he holds up his hand, that he may not look upon her face. While in another there is a winged figure, whose wings are attached to the arms, and in each hand is held the same cross. Among other things, we find here the horizontal and the vertical diameters once more, but conjoined with the circle placed on the top. This is the same as the old astrological sign for Venus, but in the seal, its chief and most important meaning is the regenerated man. Here in the center, after passing the different degrees and cycles, both spirit and matter are united in the intelligent, regenerated man, who stands in the middle, knowing all things in the manifested universe. He has triumphed over death and holds the cross of life. The last theosophical symbol is the pin of the society, adopted early in its history, but not used much. Reader's note, I couldn't even find a picture of it, so editing Kathy will have created it. It is this cross that we have been just considering. It is intertwined in such a way by a serpent that the combination makes the initials TS as a monogram for the Theosophical Society. The foregoing has not been exhaustive. Every symbol should have 7 meanings of principal value, and out of every one of those we have been considering can be drawn that same number of significations. Intelligent study of them will be beneficial, for when a constant symbol embodying many ideas is found and meditated upon, the thought or view of the symbol brings up each one of those ideas at once before the mind. End of the Theosophical Symbolism, from The Path Magazine, 1886.